Welcome to Capital Catch-up, your source for the latest legislative developments from Washington. I am Victor.
And I am Lenny. Today, we are diving into a wide range of bills, resolutions, and policy proposals. We will explore how these potential laws could directly impact everyday Americans, from protecting our digital safety to supporting local communities and our veterans. Let us start with how Congress is addressing the rapid rise of artificial intelligence.
That is a great starting point, Lenny. First, let us look at Senate Bill 4678, also known as the Stopping Illegal Minor Simulations Act, or SIMS Act. Introduced on June 3, 2026, this bill targets a very dark side of generative AI. It seeks to prohibit the creation and operation of chatbots designed to simulate minors engaging in sexually explicit conduct or conversations.
This is a crucial step for digital safety. The bill establishes severe penalties, up to $100,000 per violation for entities providing this technology. But it also includes narrow exemptions for authorized law enforcement investigations, and it protects researchers who are red teaming, which is a complex technical procedure where experts actively test systems to find and fix safety risks. It also requires the Attorney General to submit annual reports to Congress to ensure transparency.
AI is also a major focus in military operations. Senate Bill 4682, the Ultimate Human Responsibility in Defense Systems Act of 2026, focuses on the Department of Defense. It establishes strict rules to ensure that human commanders maintain meaningful control over autonomous weapon systems.
Under this bill, all autonomous weapon systems must be designed with fail-safe manual controls and allow for direct human intervention. It sets up senior-level testing and certification, a centralized repository to track system failures, and specialized training pipelines. It also creates a civilian harm mitigation and response office to prevent civilian casualties, ensuring that AI integration in defense remains ethically grounded.
Moving from national defense to local communities, let us discuss House Resolution 8746, the Victim Act of 2026. This bill addresses violent crime by establishing a grant program within the Department of Justice to help state, tribal, and local law enforcement.
This program would authorize $60 million annually from 2027 through 2031. This money is intended to improve clearance rates for homicides and firearm-related violent crimes. In public safety terms, a clearance rate refers to the percentage of cases solved by police. The funds will go toward investigative technology, forensic equipment, training, hiring personnel, and victim support services. To keep things fair, the Attorney General must streamline the application process so both rural and urban areas get equal access, while the Inspector General conducts annual audits to prevent waste.
Speaking of government spending and accountability, House Resolution 8340, the Taxpayer Funds Oversight and Accountability Act, aims to modernize how our federal agencies manage their money. It strengthens the role of Chief Financial Officers, or CFOs, by giving them more authority over budget formulation and risk management.
This bill also introduces a practical procedural fix. If a CFO position becomes vacant, the deputy CFO automatically steps in as the acting CFO, keeping operations running smoothly. It also shifts the government-wide financial management plan from a 5-year cycle to a more strategic 4-year cycle, boosting data sharing and fraud prevention with local governments.
Now let us pivot to energy and environmental accountability. Senate Bill 4715, the Offshore Leasing Standards and Accountability Act of 2026, proposes major updates to the Outer Continental Shelf Lands Act. It targets offshore oil and gas operators.
This bill introduces a fitness to operate standard. To get certified, energy companies must prove they are financially solvent, have a clean environmental record, and can pay for decommissioning, which is the complex process of safely closing and removing old offshore wells and platforms. To make sure taxpayers do not get stuck with the bill if a company goes bankrupt, the legislation mandates interest-bearing escrow accounts for each lease to pre-fund these decommissioning costs.
That is a significant shift of financial risk from the public to private corporations. On dry land, we also have Senate Bill 4714, the Fencing Eligibility for New Conservation Equipment Act, or the Fence Act, introduced on June 9, 2026. This bill updates the Agricultural Credit Act of 1978.
It allows farmers and ranchers to use Emergency Conservation Program funds to upgrade to new or emerging fencing technologies when repairing damage from natural disasters. The only catch is that these upgrades cannot increase the overall cost of the project. It is a smart way to help agricultural communities build more resilient infrastructure.
Accountability is also a major theme in Senate Bill 4713, the Preventing Payouts for Insurrectionists Act. This bill would prohibit anyone convicted of crimes related to the January 6, 2021 Capitol attack or interference in the 2016 and 2020 presidential elections from receiving monetary settlements or judgments from the federal government.
This act would retroactively bar these claims back to January 20, 2025, and mandates the recoupment of any money already paid. It also allows state attorneys general to sue to recover these funds, returning the money to the U.S. Treasury while imposing an extra 25% penalty on the offender to cover state law enforcement and court costs.
Next, let us talk about higher education. Senate Bill 4114, the Student Protection and Success Act, proposes major accountability reforms for colleges and universities regarding student loan repayments.
Starting in fiscal year 2028, any college where the cohort repayment rate is 15% or lower will lose its eligibility for federal student aid, including Pell Grants. This means if a school's former students are not successfully paying back their loans, the school loses federal funding. It also sets up a risk-sharing framework where colleges must make payments based on the volume of their non-repaid loans. Those funds will go into a college opportunity bonus program to reward schools that improve student access and affordability.
That would certainly put pressure on institutions to ensure their graduates find stable economic footing. In healthcare, House Resolution 5444, the Medical Laboratory Personnel Shortage Relief Act of 2025, aims to address critical staffing shortages in medical labs.
It integrates laboratory scientists, technicians, and phlebotomists into the National Health Service Corps. This makes them eligible for federal student loan repayment programs. It also directs the Secretary of Health and Human Services to staff underserved areas with these professionals and authorizes $25 million annually for educational grants, with a focus on recruiting students from rural or disadvantaged backgrounds.
Another healthcare priority is House Resolution 4709, the Newborn Screening Saves Lives Reauthorization Act of 2025. This bill extends and updates federal programs for screening and treating newborns with heritable disorders through 2030.
It increases funding for research and lab quality, standardizes data collection, and improves educational resources for families. It also increases transparency in how screening panel advisory committees are nominated and clarifies ethical rules for using non-identified newborn blood spots in research.
We also have House Resolution 8841, the Veteran Scam Victims Foundation Act. This bill establishes a charitable, nonprofit corporation to protect veterans and their beneficiaries from financial scams.
This foundation will focus on education and support rather than direct financial payouts. It will be governed by a board of directors, including the Secretary of Veterans Affairs, and can accept private gifts. Importantly, the federal government will have no liability for the foundation's actions.
For vulnerable populations, Senate Bill 4670, the Enhanced Alerts for Missing Loved Ones with Disabilities Act of 2026, updates Kristen's Act and the PROTECT Act. It adds developmental disabilities, Alzheimer's disease, and dementia to the criteria for the Ashanti Alert Communications Network.
This will help law enforcement quickly issue public alerts when vulnerable adults or children go missing, and it mandates specialized training for officers to handle these situations.
Finally, let us touch on some commemorative resolutions. Senate Joint Resolution 96 requests the Secretary of the Interior to authorize unique, one-time displays on the National Mall and the Washington Monument from December 31, 2025 to January 5, 2026 to kick off the nation's 250th anniversary.
It will feature historical artifacts and digital projections, drawing inspiration from past events like the 2019 Apollo 11 anniversary. On a more celebratory note, Senate Resolution 767 welcomes the international community to North America for the 2026 FIFA World Cup, which will be jointly hosted by the United States, Canada, and Mexico, featuring 48 teams and 104 matches.
And on a solemn note, Senate Resolution 768 commemorates the first anniversary of the June 1, 2025 anti-Semitic terrorist attack on participants of a Run for Their Lives walk in Boulder, Colorado, which took the life of 82-year-old Karen Diamond and injured several others. The resolution honors the victims, commends the first responders, and reaffirms the Senate's commitment to fighting anti-Semitism and domestic terrorism.
As we wrap up, listeners should watch out for upcoming committee debates on higher education risk-sharing models, the implementation of the new AI guidelines within the Department of Defense, and the initial preparations for the nation's 250th anniversary displays on the National Mall.
Thank you for listening to Capital Catch-Up. We will see you next time.